In order to understand the role of money and banking in our modern economy, it's important to know about the true nature of the Federal Reserve, often simply called the Fed. Most people think the Federal Reserve is a government-owned bank in the United States or a branch of the Department of Treasury, but this couldn't be further from the truth. The Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express, is the joke that people familiar with this issue often tell, and they're right. It's a private group of banks that lends money to the United States government in the same way your local bank lends money to you. This ingenious scheme was put in place back in 1913 with the passing of the Federal Reserve Act, which was drawn up in secret by a wealthy group of banksters when they met on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia several years earlier under the cover story of going on a hunting trip. The Jekyll Island meeting included executives from all the major banks at the time. The plan they put together would then be presented to Senator Nelson Aldrich, whose daughter was married to John D. Rockefeller Jr., who presented it to Congress, where it then became known as the Aldrich Plan. Paul Warburg later admitted that the plan was drawn up and settled on Jekyll Island. Frank Vanderlip, who worked with the Rockefellers and attended the Jekyll Island meeting, would later admit in his autobiography, titled From Farm Boy to Financier, that, quote, "Discovery we knew simply must not happen, or else all our time and effort would be wasted. If it were to be exposed publicly that our particular group had gotten together and written a banking bill, that bill would have no chance whatsoever of passage by Congress," end quote. Ever since the Federal Reserve Act was put into law, the United States has become a servant to the elite banking cartel, and the national debt has skyrocketed out of control, not to mention the US dollar losing more than 96% of its purchasing power because of inflation. Alan Greenspan, who worked as the chairman of the Federal Reserve for over 18 years, made an extremely candid statement once about how powerful the Federal Reserve is when being interviewed on PBS while he was promoting his book, The Age of Turbulence, back in 2007. Have a look.
What is the proper relationship, what should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. What the relationships are don't frankly matter.
Frankly, it doesn't matter, he says. Those who run the banking system have a tremendous amount of power in their hands because those who control the issuance of currency have the ability to create money out of nothing, declare its legal tender, and then loan it out to people or the government and collect interest on the money that they lend out. It's the perfect scam because instead of earning their money by building something, delivering packages, raising livestock, or any number of other ways that people earn an honest living, the banksters have cleverly positioned themselves into a place where they take in a massive amount of money for basically doing nothing other than acting as the self-proclaimed sole authority on money itself. Once you wrap your mind around what it means to create money out of nothing and loan it out at interest, you can realize what a monumental scam this is. The president of the Bank of England and the second richest man in Britain in the 1920s, Sir Josiah Stamp, is reported to have revealed that, quote, "The modern banking system manufactures money out of nothing. Process is perhaps the most astounding piece of sleight of hand that was ever invented. Banking was conceived in iniquity and born in sin. Bankers own the earth. Take it away from them, but leave them the power to create money, and with the flick of a pen, they will create enough money to buy it back again. Take this great power away from them, and all great fortunes like mine will disappear, for then this world would be a happier world to live in. But if you want to continue to be slaves of bankers and pay the cost of your own slavery, then let the bankers continue to create money and control credit." In 1816, Thomas Jefferson wrote to his longtime friend John Taylor, thanking him for sending a copy of his book, An Inquiry into the Principles and Policy of the Government of the United States, and concluded his letter by saying that, quote, "I sincerely believe, with you, that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies, and that the principle of spending money to be paid by posterity, meaning future generations, under the name of funding is but swindling futurity, meaning the future, on a large scale." The Federal Reserve Bank is working with other central banks around the world to incrementally introduce regional currencies in different areas of the world by merging various different neighboring countries' currencies into one. Having Richard Nixon take America off the gold gold standard in 1972 and continuing to run up the national debt is all part of the banksters' plan to inflate the United States dollar to the point of worthlessness, forcing it to be replaced with a new regional currency, or even bypassing that step and moving right into a global currency. The saying goes that the love of money is the root of all evil, and that root leads directly to the Federal Reserve banksters and the global financial mafia. World-renowned economist John Maynard Keynes, whose philosophies are known as Keynesian economics, wrote in his book, The Economic Consequences of Peace, that, quote, Lenin is said to have declared that the best way to destroy the capitalist system was to debauch the currency. By a continuing process of inflation, governments can confiscate secretly and unobserved an important part of wealth of their citizens. There's no subtler, no surer way of overturning the existing basis of society than to debauch the currency. The process engages all the hidden forces of economic law on the side of destruction and does it in a manner which not one man in a million is able to diagnose. This is a major part of the Great Reset that the world leaders have been talking about. In the Bible, it's written that Jesus not only denounced the money changers at the temple, but he actually tipped over their tables and used a whip to chase them away. In the 2,000 years since then, the corrupt money changers and tax collectors have only grown more powerful through their sneaky tactics and have continued to systematically turn most people into peasants and debt slaves. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is the servant to the lender, warns one of the proverbs. To learn more about this fascinating and important issue, I encourage you to watch the documentary films Money as Debt, or The American Dream, or Monopoly Men, which is hosted by Dean Stockwell, which you may still be able to find on YouTube, but you're going to have to do some digging and probably add the keywords Federal Reserve documentary when you look them up, because the algorithm keeps them buried under a pile of irrelevant mainstream media results. I don't have any financial advice for anyone, but I do recommend books, one of which is Tony Robbins' book Money Master the Game, since we're on the topic, which is one of the best books that I've ever read. And once you're done with that, if you really want to go deep, you can get A Random Walk Down Wall Street by Burton Malkiel, which I would say is a pretty advanced book on the subject, but definitely get Tony Robbins' book Money Master the Game, because it contains priceless wisdom. Not about the Federal Reserve and the banking cartel, but just personal finance in general. To learn about the Federal Reserve, you can pick up Ron Paul's book End the Fed, or G. Edward Griffin's classic The Creature from Jekyll Island. And if you like my monologues like this, then you'll love reading my books, so head on over to Amazon.com and pick up Hollywood Propaganda, How TV, Movies, and Music Shape Our Culture, or The True Story of Fake News. Get them in paperback or download the ebooks from any of the major ebook stores. And of course, there's a link to the listings in the description below, so click it and head on over there and check them out.
Do you think gold is money?
No.
It's not money. Even if it had been money for 6,000 years, somebody reversed that and eliminated that economic law.
Well, it's an asset. I mean, it's the same. Would you say Treasury bills are money? I don't think they're money either, but they're a financial asset.
Why do central banks hold it?
Well, it's a form of reserves.
Why don't they hold diamonds?
Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
Some people still think it's money. I yield back. My time is up.
Thank you.